Good morning. My name is Ryan Morgan. I'm a partner here in the law firm of Morgan & Morgan and co-chair of the Employee Rights Group. Thank you to everyone who is here in the room. We have numerous reporters here, as well as we do have numerous reporters on the phone, so we ask those who are on the phone to please mute your phones for the time being. We are also going to place those on the phone on mute so that Chris and I can say our statements here. We'll then take questions from reporters in the room, and then we will open it up to questions from any reporters still on the phone. So why are we here? This morning, Morgan & Morgan filed a class action lawsuit in Leon County on behalf of Chris Alianello and over 100,000 public school teachers who were paid bonuses as part of the Best and Brightest program codified in Florida statutes. You will hear Chris's side of the story here in a few moments, but Chris approached me in the firm a few months ago inquiring whether it was legal for the state to not pay the full bonus amount specified in the Best and Brightest statutes. Chris was himself eligible for these bonuses in both 2018 and in 2019, and he was paid a bonus in those years, but it was less than the amount required by law. Now, why did this happen? In short, the state improperly authorized school districts to artificially reduce the amount of bonuses paid to teachers under the Best and Brightest program to account for employer-side taxes and other potential payroll expenses normally borne by employers. We believe this to be illegal. The Best and Brightest statutes for the last several years are extremely specific in the amount of bonuses to be paid to teachers who meet the eligibility requirements. This improperly, quote, authorized deductions has taken tens of millions of dollars in bonus pay away from teachers who met the qualifications. We estimate that over 100,000 school teachers have been affected by this shortage. We hope the state and the Department of Education see the error in their ways and will agree to pay these shorted bonuses back to the teachers. I'm now going to turn it over to Chris Alianello, who can share his story. Chris.
Thank you, Ryan. Good morning, everyone. As Ryan mentioned, my name is Chris Alianello. Just to give you a brief background on me, I have been in the Central Florida area since I attended UCF and started out my career for about 10 years in the finance industry locally. After doing that and after taking some time off, I decided when I went back into the workforce, I wanted to find a profession that would allow me to give back to my community more. And that is why I decided to get into teaching in the first place. And I did do that knowing that I was going to be taking a pay cut from what I was earning in the private sector. However, right after I started in the 2017-18 school year, I was notified that I would be eligible for the Best and Brightest bonus, which of course I was excited about and would help to make up for some of that financial gap that I created. So I was eligible for basically the highest bonus amount for both of the 2 school years that I taught there. And this past year, they paid the bonus out in March, and about a week before they paid the bonus out, as Ryan mentioned, they sent an email to all the school teachers that were getting a bonus, and it starts out great. You know, great news, congratulations, you were able to earn essentially this top tier bonus, you know, of X amount of dollars, but then it went on to say, and here's what you're going to get. And it wasn't that same amount. It's not the amount that's in the statutes. So like I said, with my finance background and some tax education, to me it did not seem to make sense at all. And I started thinking about, you know, the fact that they're doing this to tens or hundreds of thousands of teachers throughout Florida as well. So after doing a little bit of research on my own and seeing that it didn't make sense from a financial aspect that they would be forcing teachers or employees to pay the employer taxes, that's when I reached out to Morgan & Morgan to make sure that, you know, the best legal eyes were taking a look at it as well. So thank you all for being here today. And Ryan?
And so with that, the statements are over. We can take any questions anybody here in the room may have related to the case.
Would it be too much to ask how much was the bonus and how much ended up getting to you, and you know how much you have to pay out of yourself?
No, of course. There's different tiers to the bonus depending on your qualifications and some eligibility criteria that is a little unfair even. My bonus, personally, the first year as a new teacher, I was eligible for, the maximum for a new teacher was a $6,000 bonus. And this past year, being a a highly effective teacher. In the prior year, it was a $7,200 bonus that I should have received.
And to answer your question, as far as the first bonus of the $6,000 amount, Chris was shorted $426.38. For the second year, in the $7,200 bonus, which is actually two bonuses of $6,000 and $1,200, combined he was shorted about $511.66.
Is this payroll taxes that are being paid by the employee, or these are taxes that are being paid by the school board, or being pulled out by the school board on behalf of the employee?
Well, the employees, of course, do pay their own employee payroll taxes, Social Security, Medicare, things of that sort. But the literature from the state was pretty clear that they were expecting the teachers to bear the employer's side of those expenses. And so when you look at the actual line item on the bonus, what should say $6,000 will only say $5,500 and change. It's already been reduced out, and so that doesn't match with the statute. If you read the statute, it's very clear. It does not give any wiggle room for the state to decide what is the appropriate amount. It says $6,000. That means $6,000.
Can you help me understand again, what was their explanation as to why they shorted that amount?
Sure. If you look at our complaint, we have some of the exhibits are the actual directives from the state, from the Department of Education, that say when you are paying out these bonuses, we're going to, and I'm putting in parentheses, authorize you, the school districts, to deduct out the 7.65% employer's share of Medicare and Social Security, as well as any other workers' compensation insurance and any other employer-related payroll expense, which typically, as everybody knows here who works for companies, that's something that companies pay as part of their obligations to the IRS under the federal government.
Do you know how much, do you have any estimate as to how much overall you think teachers may have been shorted statewide because of this issue?
Yes, we've tried to run some numbers based on publicly available information. It's certainly north of $25 to $30 million. It could even be higher than that, depending upon which years qualify under our case.
Is there another way to look at this, where instead of saying this is $25 to $30 million the teachers didn't get, that this is $25 to $30 million that now school boards will have to find out of their own budgets?
No, because this money came from the state, and in fact, in one of the years, 2 years ago, the program actually had excess funds available, which would have covered all the payroll taxes had they decided to pay them directly themselves. That was already allocated by the legislature.
So when the legislature's allocating, they're allocating above that $6,000 per employee.
Well, they're
For the example of that bonus, when they budgeted for your bonus is $6,000, they actually budgeted above that 7.6%.
Well, I can't speak to specifically how they allocated it, but I do know in the 2018 payments, which cover the 2017 and 18 school year, there was an excess of about $20 million in unspent funds, which would have covered all the payroll expenses for that year. I don't know if maybe perhaps less teachers qualified than they thought, but there was money available to pay those items that they needed to.
Are you wondering or even thought about this could be open up a floodgate for other situations? Because certainly this is not the first time that teachers have received a bonus in this respect, but in other respects, and what this could mean possibly for our teachers as it relates to filing even more lawsuits.
It certainly could. I mean, I don't think it's a controversial statement. I think it's a pretty universally accepted, I don't want to call it a fact because we don't like it, but teachers in the state of Florida are routinely underpaid. 46th in salaries, $12,000 below the national average. So teacher pay is very important, and teachers should be paid more. And if you look at all the blogs and all the social media that's out there with teachers discussing these issues, the universal response you see is they want to be paid more, but they don't want all of their pay to be tied to arbitrary bonuses that are on, issues that are outside of their control. Or I know the law just recently changed, but it used to be based on SAT and ACT scores from 20, 30 years ago. Generally speaking, they want to have their pay rise. But you are right, there could be other situations. In fact, there are a few other statutes related to bonus pay, but which is interesting is in some of those statutes, they actually directly address the employer's share of payroll taxes and specify where those funds come from, which I think actually makes this case more egregious.
How many teachers are you representing, and you feel like you're representing more as you move forward?
We will be representing more. This has been filed as a class action lawsuit, a putative class action lawsuit. So at some point here in the future, if the state's not willing to try to make this right, we'll be moving for class certification. in which case all teachers who were awarded the bonuses will be part of our class action.
And right now, how many are, it's just.
Right now, Chris is our only one, yes.
Chris, you're lucky because you've got the financial background to really see these things, these red flags pop up, but we as novice people aren't. But still, as you did your homework, your reaction to your own bonus when you didn't feel like didn't get what you were told you would get.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my initial reaction was I read this email right before my spring break, and I thought, you're not taking my money. And like I said, I looked into it a little bit more, and you're right. A lot of teachers would read this email and think, oh, well, if they're doing this, then not even just teachers, a lot of people would say, well, then they must be able to do that. So I decided to look into it more. So.
Chris, how do you feel being the, poster child for this right now?
Initially, of course, I want to get the money that was owed to me. But I do also want to make sure that the tens or hundreds of thousands of teachers across Florida get their fair share of what is essentially an unfair bonus. And then, of course, make sure that this does not continue to happen in the future.
Can you tell us where you teach and whether you heard from any colleagues when you first discovered this?
I was at Union Park Elementary School. What do you mean by what I heard?
I mean, were other colleagues also like, oh, I thought I was going to get $6,000 and now.
Well, no. I mean, kind of like I was saying, I think most people just kind of accepted it. Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many other teachers got the same level of bonus that you did?
Yes, we do. In the last school year, I believe Leslie reported on it, there was 11,600 teachers statewide who received the top level, which was that $7,200 amount. There were approximately 81,000 recipients who received the $1,200 amount, and then there's a third tier of $800 that about 67,000 and change of teachers received this last school year that just ended 2019 here.
So you're saying that, so that was what they're supposed to get, you're saying that those many teachers did not receive the full compensation?
Correct.
It's happening statewide, it's not just the county that Chris works in?
The instructions from the Department of Education went to all counties. And from our research and investigation, we have yet to find any situation where that did not happen.
Have you had any response yet from DOE on this?
Not yet, but I expect to hear from them soon.
Union Park, Chris, is Orange County. Have you gone to them? Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you go to your school board? Was that one first step, or how did you?
I did not. And as Ryan mentioned, this was something that the DOE authorized the school boards to do. So I don't see that our current, perspective of this is that they weren't doing anything necessarily they were supposed to be doing or weren't supposed to be doing. They followed what was told by the DOE.
Do you feel like the intent of the language of the bill might have been misconstrued where teachers should have been given that full bonus? Or and I don't know, maybe is it the intent of the language that we're talking about?
Well, like all laws, we have to follow the language. And what does the law allow? What does it say? Had the law said the school boards are allowed to deduct those taxes, we wouldn't be sitting here today. But it doesn't. It has that specific dollar amount listed. And the legislature and the school and the Department of Education, like any other private employer, has to follow what the law specifically says.
How do you feel moving forward now? We have the announcement that taking on the Department of Education on this. How are you feeling?
I feel okay. It's not our first case against governmental bodies. Both in my realm, I do employment claims for the firm personally, but even outside of my realm, the firm obviously has taken on some of the biggest cases in the country. So it is a big case. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm excited more than anything because I do think we are in the right here.
I would imagine teachers, after seeing our stories today, might want to know more information or might want to reach out. Anything for them?
Absolutely. They can always call our numbers. We will be issuing a press release. There will be a link for a webpage dedicated to the case, a copy of the lawsuit for them to read and make sure everybody's on the same page about what this is about. But yeah, we would love to have people who are interested in participating. They can certainly call and make sure that they are involved in the case so that hopefully one day, when the state makes this right, they can recover those monies taken from them.
Chris, are you nervous at all? Are you worried about your job?
A little nervous with all the cameras in front of my face, but in terms of what I'm doing, I'm not nervous at all now. I mean, the law seems to be very black and white in this case, so. just trying to do what's right.
Chris, what subject or grade did you teach, and are you still a teacher employed by the district?
My first year I was a third grade teacher. My second year I was a second grade teacher, both at Union Park. I was actually not reappointed at my school at the end of last year, basically let go, laid off. So I will not be returning to OCPS.
Did the non-reappointment play any play any role in your decision to?
No, I had already met with Morgan with Ryan here. Before I was non-reappointed.
With all due respect, it's one thing to take on a case of this magnitude, and we know Morgan & Morgan's history as far as cases are concerned. What about winning a case like this?
I do feel very confident. I myself have handled numerous class collective action cases involving thousands and tens of thousands of employees. Quite frankly, this is, I don't want to call it an easier case because that's not a fair statement, but there's not a lot of hiding here. The state has put it in these directives of what they were doing. I'm certainly interested to hear why they wanted to do this, but what they actually did is not hidden. So this is really, if you ignore just the size of the numbers of people we're talking about here, it's a rather straightforward issue. So I certainly hope the state addresses it and comes to us. At that point, what people are owed is quite simply a mathematical calculation. It's not a one at a time, we have to do this. It's going to be people under this category get X amount of dollars. People under this category who got this bonus get X amount of dollars. There shouldn't be a lot of differentiation to it.
Even outside of the education world, is this a common practice? Do you see this elsewhere?
I have seen it a very, very small number of times. It is. Everybody just knows. When you work for a company, it'd be like if you worked for a company and they said, we're going to pay you $20 an hour. Then you get your first paycheck and it really says 18. You're like, well, what happened to that $2? Oh, well, we have to pay our taxes and all the things associated. Well, that's not what the agreement was. That violates IRS rules, which mandate the employer pay those taxes. And I've seen it a couple of times. All I would say is those cases typically tend to go away rather quickly.
Chris, by any chance, do you speak Spanish?
I do not. I'm sorry.
Chris, how do you spell your last name?
ALIANIELLO.
ALIANIELLO.
That's correct.
The lawsuit was filed this morning?
It was in Leon County Circuit Court.
Ryan, not to be redundant, just one question about the state teachers union had sued the state over the bonus under different context. Obviously, you have a different argument here. Does that, the fact that they didn't get very far in their lawsuit, I mean, they did get a settlement, but does that give you any pause at all or no?
No, and in fact, I spoke with one of those lawyers recently who was handling that case. They are two different issues, right? In this previous case, the one that the legislature allocated, I think it was $15.5 million, if I'm not mistaken, towards that discrimination lawsuit. Those are for individuals who did not receive the bonus, but believe they should have. Whereas our case is for people who only did receive the bonus. So there's no overlap as far as class members or who is eligible in what case. If anything, I think it gives me confidence in that, hoping the state will, having realized some of the errors with the program overall, can look at this with a fair shake and hopefully come to us soon to try to get this corrected.
Is this a bonus that started in 2017, or it just started for you, Chris, in 2017, or is this a bonus that's been going on for years?
It has been going on longer than that. Chris was eligible for, the terminology can be tough because, school years obviously span 2 calendar years. So 2017-18 is paid in 2018. Chris was first eligible for that one. The program does predate that by a year or two.
Chris, do you want to teach anywhere else? Are you looking at any more jobs?
I'm at this point. I'm not going to now.
Is it because of the season?
No. Thank you.
It's really been historically difficult to do class action lawsuits and get the classes certified. Why are you so confident that you'll be able to clear those hurdles in this case?
Because of the standard you need to meet for class certification, you have to have a unifying common policy. And I don't know how the state here can say this is not a unified common policy when they themselves issued the guidance saying to do this through all counties. That is the definition of a unified common policy. And it touches on what I said a moment ago, that the damages that can be received per person are a simple calculation. It will just be based upon what category of bonus they received. then there's just a number associated. Like, for example, with Chris's first year, everybody who received only the $6,000 had $426.38 deducted out.
Thank you.
You guys ask
Okay.
anything else?
I know if we have anybody on the phone who would like to ask any additional follow-up questions.
I have a question.
Yes, and if you could, please identify yourself and your news outlet prior to the question.
Of course, yeah. This is Emily Mahoney with the Tampa Bay Times. I just wanted to make sure I understand. So you're talking about recouping taxes being taken out of the bonus, and these are not, this is just trying to recoup the taxes that the employer should have paid, not necessarily, is that separate from employee taxes, like you said, Social Security, Medicare taxes that we are all used to seeing coming out of a paycheck, for example?
Yes and no. So every employee
Okay.
has to pay the employee share of their taxes. On all of our paychecks, we see the Social Security taxes, the Medicare taxes. Your employer has to pay the exact same amount directly to the federal government themselves. So it's actually double the amount you see on your paycheck. So here, it's not that they deducted it straight out, because you don't see it on the paycheck. For example, look, I'm looking at Chris's check from 2018. What should say $6,000 says $5,573.62. It was artificially reduced before they ever put it actually on the paycheck. Now, we know from the DOE's directives that the reason for that was to, quote, account for the employer side taxes. But by doing that, it violates the language of the statute that says the bonus had to be $6,000, as an example, along with the other tiers.
What statute is that?
It is statute 1012.731.
So is it correct to say, this is Emily Mahoney again, is it correct to say that they essentially charge teachers double the amount of, they strapped teachers with double the amount of taxes they should have been paying on their bonuses? Or should there not have been any taxes?
Well, no, certainly every employee's got to pay their share of the employee taxes, but the employer taxes should not have been accounted for here, unless the statute authorized it, which it simply did not.
Yeah, I think about it, when I had a moving bonus, I had to pay taxes on that my own as well. But I guess is that a state mandate, or I guess I don't know the question like that, but is that usually how it goes in the state where you would have to?
No,
or-
normally not. The rest of Chris's pay is he only pays the employee share of the taxes. The school board, the state pays the employer's share of the taxes. And that's how it is. That's how it's supposed to be. That is the way the IRS rules are set up.
Is this a situation where the law was put in effect and they said, hey, Department of Education, you as the administrative body make the rules on how to dole this out, and then Department of Education, administratively made that call?
It doesn't specifically state that in these versions of the statute, because it specifically has that dollar amount. It does say that the Department of Education will forward the funds to the districts, in essence. But it does not give them rulemaking authority to contravene the statute. Any other questions?
Hi, this is Terry Spencer from the Associated Press. I couldn't hear the question, but it sounded like Chris is not trying to get back into teaching. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Was he laid off because of an enrollment issue, or was there some sort of performance issue that resulted in him not being retained?
What qualified me for the bonus was the fact that I was rated highly effective the last 2 years. I can't actually give you an exact reason I was laid off or not reassigned, because I was not given one. There were 4 other teachers at my school that I believe were also effective or highly effective that were not reappointed, and hundreds throughout the county. And that's actually an issue that the Orange County Union, the CTA, is looking into that issue as well.
Okay.
I have an additional
additional question. This is Ryan Daly from Florida Public Radio. I think I recall you saying you estimate that teachers statewide could have been shorted north of $25 to $30 million. I was wondering how you arrived at that estimate.
Yes, good question. What we did is trying to use the publicly available information about the number of teachers who received which tier of the bonus is to sort of reverse engineer and calculate what would have been taken out per person. Obviously, we know from Chris's payroll checks what he was taken. So, multiplying that out by the number of teachers who met the different bonuses in the individual years, and then aggregating all that up together. Any other questions?
Just for clarity's sake, because after they asked a question, I'm even more confused. Just for clarity's sake, I saw where you broke down the amount that he was supposed to get, the amount he didn't get, and what he was lacking. And again, that was because of, explain that again, as far as who was supposed to pay what tax under what state mandate.
The reason that was given by the state is it's in our lawsuit. If you look at the exhibits attached to the complaint, you'll see the actual directives itself. And it was well, I'm putting in parentheses here, authorized by the state to reduce the bonuses to account for employer, company side, taxes. And so when you look at it from a statutory interpretation construction, like we were talking about a second ago, is the statute says 6,000. Quite frankly, the reason is immaterial. You could deduct it because you wanted to pay for more school buildings, which we all think is a good thing, but you can make up a million reasons for what the reason was. It doesn't comply with the statute though.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. If there's no other questions,
Do you have hard copies of the lawsuit here?
we do. We can hand those to you, yes. Well, thank you all for coming.
Thank you all
Have
very
a good
much.
rest of the day.